Welcome to the Arena Sports Bar and Grill here in downtown Ann Arbor. I am Michael Spath here with Ron Simpkins for our Saturday morning TheWolverine.com Tailgate show. Ron, last week of the regular season, how you feeling?
The best thing I can say is I'm hoping for respectability, a chance to play well, a ranked team. We've had a up and down season, but again, if you can't beat Michigan State and Ohio State, beat Ohio State. And I think that's what everybody's shooting for right now.
Well, I think it was interesting earlier in the week. We met with some of the players, and they were, we're asking them what their legacy is. And they said, our legacy, we have one more game to prove what our legacy is. And for this senior class especially, you look at it, and since the Sugar Bowl 2 years ago, it's been pretty downhill since then. 8-5 in 2012, 7-4 this year, a loss to Michigan State, a bad loss to Nebraska, a bad loss a week ago against Iowa. Things we're going to talk about, but this is their one chance to redeem themselves. If they win this game, everything changes for them.
Right. Like I said, it kind of puts things in perspective, especially for the underclassmen. You want to send the senior class out with a victory, especially against Ohio State. So this is the real only opportunity they have to really redeem themselves for the whole season. And like you say, people really only remember that last game. So if you can win this game and win a bowl game, your legacy will be a little more intact as opposed to having 2 losses at the end of your career.
Yeah, I think if they lose this game and they finish 7-5 and the potential to be 7-6 or 8-5 with a bowl game, I mean, you know better than anybody just that when you go back, when you see those guys, I mean, even in this show that we've done, how many times have we asked you guys, what was your record against Michigan State?
Right.
What was your record against Notre Dame? What's your record against Ohio State? And if they have to say 1-4 against Ohio State or 1-3 against Ohio State, and when we finished off we were 7-5, I mean, it's going to be something that's going to live with them for a long time.
It will. And that's why I think that the emphasis this week will be for the underclassmen to send their seniors out with a W, because that's really what you're playing for right now. Based on everything that's happened this season, the ups and downs and all that, you just want to send those seniors out with a W.
Well, real quick, what was your record against Ohio State?
I only lost to them once.
Okay, only lost to them once. So I certainly think that the Michigan fans or the Michigan players would love that kind of record right now. But we talk about it. Players say that it's the week of the game is a little bit different. Can you think back to when you were 18, 19, 20? Were you waking up at 4 o'clock in the morning? I mean, what was that energy like for you the week of the game?
I was one of those kind of players. I slept pretty good before the game.
Okay.
But I do. The one memory I have of Ohio State that really sticks in my mind, my freshman year, we were late catching the bus to the Ohio State game. So we had alumni that drove us to the stadium. And
did you end up playing in that game, Ron?
I ended up playing in that game.
Oh, my.
I don't know if Bo had amnesia or what. I got to talking to her my life when we got to the hotel. And his final words when I left the room was, "You'll never play against Ohio State." So, I went in the game thinking there's no way I'm getting in the game. He called my name, and I was like, okay, so got in the game, got a chance to play. Later that year, but we got up at 6 o'clock in the morning and ran all the way to the Rose Bowl because of that too. So it's etched in my mind now, and I'm pretty prompt now.
Yeah, I was saying, but you've never been late again in your life. You're always early for the show here, so.
It's embedded in me now. That was the scariest feeling in the world. I'm sitting there with my roommate and telling him I may have to transfer.
Really?
I don't know what kind of career I'm gonna have after this. He may never forgive me for this. And he kept saying, you're a freshman, you didn't earn it yet, you shouldn't even. But we won the game, so I think that kind of took a little edge off of him as far as being upset about us being late. Yeah,
well, and the other thing they say about this game, and they, hey, this is now more than a decade ago that they got ranked the best rivalry in any sport. And you've played in great games, and you went on to have an illustrious NFL career, and you've played in a Super Bowl. How does this game compare to something like that, playing at an ultimate level in NFL football?
I gotta tell you, this game really prepares you for anything else you do in your career related to pro football or whatever. You talk about rivalries and being prepared to play and those kind of things. When you think back in the preparation, especially with both, it started the Sunday after the last game before the Ohio State game, and you kind of build it to a frenzy peak. The one thing you had to do was try to, in your mind, try to stay under control and, stay assignment-wise, what you're supposed to do and those kind of things. really have to do is just stay under control, stay calm, and this prepares you for that on the next level, especially in the NFL, because it's always the bright lights. So every game's a big game, you know. There are no small games, you know. You always got TV cameras there, no matter what, if it's just a regional game. So this really prepares you, especially going to the next level. And I mean, this kind of game prepares you for life. You know, you start preparing yourself for events and things in business and those kind of things. And this is what it does. It gets you ready for the rest of your life.
Well, that's an interesting way to look at it. I think so often people just look at wins and losses, the results, and they don't really appreciate what it's like to be a true student athlete and what these games do for you beyond, you know, reunions where you come back and say, oh, I went 3-1 against Ohio State. I mean, this is real life, and this is, you know, 18 to 23-year-old kids that are becoming men that are, I mean, look at yourself. You're a successful guy. You have we've talked about your children before. You have these great kids, and there's more to it than just what happens on Saturday. Of course, telling that to the fans and telling that to anybody else that, yeah, I mean, it is about the game on Saturday. But certainly, I think sometimes when, especially during a tough season, it's those moments where we can maybe take a step back and reflect and realize, like, hey, there's more to it than just winning and losing.
That's why, you know, since we've been doing the show, it's kind of hard to get down on these guys, because you still have to keep it in perspective. These guys are 18, 19, 20-year-old guys that are developing and becoming men. You know, sometimes their actions and things they do don't really reflect them as being grown men, because they're not, you know. And you also have to think about the idea that, you know, college, football, the preparation, the character stuff, all those things they talk about are really a part of the college experience. And if you don't benefit from that part of it, then, you know, the whole thing is really a waste. So there's always some positives.
There always are, and there's unfortunately there's too many negatives.
Yeah.
And I know that we're in that business. I'm in the business where, you know, I'm being paid for criticism. You know, hopefully fair criticism, but hopefully not over the top criticism. But, you know, I was just talking to some guys who were telling me that Devin Gardner's gotten so many hate, you know, letters of hate mail, hate tweet, things like that, and there's just no place for it. And this weekend, you know, there's talk about there's going to be so many Ohio State fans in the big house. And I was talking to Doug Karch earlier this week, and he said he had a caller up on his radio show that said, you know, I'm going to go out of my way to find an Ohio State fan to sell my ticket to. And he just said, what do you think of that? And I said, well, that is a spoiled brat that should honestly right now take off their Michigan gear and just burn it and be done with it, because I don't know that you deserve to be a Michigan fan if you're going to seek out an Ohio State fan to put another scarlet and gray. I certainly understand the frustration, and I don't think that you know, we should be throwing the fans and saying, well, these people are sellouts and the whole thing. I think the fans have a right to be upset. They're paying a lot of money. You know, I know for my brother has season tickets. He's spending upwards of $2,500 a year for his season tickets, and there's a expectation with that. But let's not go way over here either.
And that's exactly what it's like, because that's the thing about college football. You know, you start over again next season, and you got young guys playing again. Everything changes. People jump off the bandwagon. You don't disassociate yourself with your alma mater. You know, because you had a bad season. It was a bad season. You know, that's I think the Brady whole legacy. You know, if he wouldn't have had the success he had earlier, it would have been a little easier, I think, this transition into not having a great season right now. But you live and you learn, and I think the guys that are playing there now, you're talking about building character. This builds character. If you can endure this, when you win at Michigan, there's nothing like it. If you lose at Michigan, it's probably the worst thing you ever experienced. But to win at Michigan, probably the greatest experience in the world.
Yeah.
And hopefully they'll get the chance to feel that, because you got so many young guys on the team.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, that would be a great thing for Saturday. We will come back to the Arena Sports Bar in just a few minutes, and we'll be joined by Andy Reid, Tim Sullivan, and Phil Brabbs are all here this week.
Welcome back to TheWolverine.com Tailgate Show. We are going to look at some recruiting, because there's been quite a few fun stories out there this week.
Yeah, it's been a busy week for me already, and it's only Tuesday when we're filming this.
First off, we'll talk about the one I had to bug you when you were just about to leave the office on Tuesday, and this story broke. Eric Swenson, a 2016 offensive tackle. What do you make of this kid?
He's a great player for starters. Obviously, Michigan offered him so early in the process. They've only offered a small handful of 2016 kids, and so all the kids that they have offered, you can be pretty much assured that they're going to be the top recruits in the nation. I think Swenson is possible 5-star, even just to start. I think it's almost certain that he ends up a 5-star as long as he develops as you would expect him to, as the Michigan coaches obviously do expect him to. He's 6'5", 290-pound kid whose dad is even taller than him, Swen Swenson, a great name. He's taller than his son, Eric. So Eric could still be growing, and he could be that 6'7", 6'8", Jake Long, Taylor Lewan-sized kid. He's very flexible, especially for a young guy. Usually linemen don't learn that until later in their careers, and he's a very powerful blocker, even though he's just a sophomore in high school.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned the size, and it's crazy. He's almost college ready right now. He's a sophomore. Have you gotten a chance to see him?
Yeah, I've seen him several times in camps, and I went to one of his games this fall. Get a pretty good impression of him at camps. He's a pretty good pass blocker, which is most of what you see in camps, but he's a completely different player when the lights come on. He doesn't have that nasty streak quite yet, but he is able to show off his power so much, and that's what really impresses me about him the most, is how he's able to translate the skills that he has that he can show in the camp setting. When the pads come on, that doesn't disappear. It actually gets accelerated, and he looks even better.
Are you kind of surprised that a kid that has that much kind of interest already pulled the trigger so soon, or was this just kind of inevitable?
It's interesting because with Swenson, I've known him already. You know, I think Rivals first saw him when he was a 7th or 8th grader, maybe. I've known him for almost a year now, and he's always been pretty frank. He's never sugarcoated it at all. Michigan was his favorite school, and Northwestern was probably the only one that had a chance to knock Michigan off the pedestal. He told me that he pretty much made up his mind after he went to the Notre Dame game earlier this year. He saw the Big House for the first time since he was a 6th grader. I think he said he went to an Iowa game, and he said they got 100,000 people there, and it was just for an Iowa game, which I found was really funny. He's had his mind made up for a little while now, and the weirdest thing is he says, I've got my college decision figured out, it's out of the way. And then I sit there and I think, it feels like I'm going to college next month. I'm not going to college for 2.5 years.
Yeah.
So the acceleration of the recruiting process is just it's so crazy. But with a kid like Swenson, he's the sort of kid that you do expect to make an early decision just because he's been so sure of it for so long.
And you've seen it now a couple times with these early guys that get into the class, that they end up helping the class kind of come together. Is he the kind of vocal kid that can help in a way that Shane Morris or somebody like that did?
He's an interesting personality because he's very outgoing. He talked my ear off when I spoke to him after he committed, and I think I talked to him for maybe 25-30 minutes, and after the interview we were just kind of talking a little bit, and he's a very outgoing kid, but I don't think he's the sort of kid that's going to seek out other kids necessarily to recruit them. Now, if he has the opportunity, when he's at Michigan Stadium on Saturday, to see that Ohio State game and there's 100 recruits in attendance, yeah, you can bet he's going to put in a good word. But he's not really the sort of personality that's going to go seeking out kids to put in that good word to make sure that they know about it. He's going to take advantage of the opportunities that are there, but not necessarily go out of his way to find those opportunities to recruit kids.
All right, that's very exciting news for the future. Distant future. Who knows? What the Big Ten could have 16 teams by the time he's in there. Who knows?
We'd be playing on the moon.
In some more news, big news, maybe not as exciting. Jabril Peppers tweeted this week that he was considering taking official visits elsewhere. Is this really that big of a deal?
It's interesting because the way he tweeted it was he retweeted an article from Rivals.com. I believe it was written by Keenan Codrington about a commitment to Alabama named Bo Scarborough. He goes to a school in Florida called the IMG Academy. It's a boarding school. It's pretty much just a football school where they have tutors. And the kid has taken a couple visits this year, and he said, I'm still with Alabama. And so Peppers retweeted that article and said, I might think about taking a couple of visits after the season too. And the way he brought it up, it seemed like he was mostly supporting his buddy, more so than trying to break news. Obviously, that he is even thinking about taking visits certainly is newsworthy. However, with the way Peppers' recruitment played out when he did make his commitment to Michigan, with the way his high school coach has a great relationship with the Michigan coaches, and with the way Peppers has a great relationship with the Michigan coaches, I would be pretty surprised if he ended up anywhere other than Michigan. Might he take a visit or two? That's where it starts to get tricky because the Michigan coaches have a policy, and it's been misunderstood and reinterpreted so many times on message boards.
Let's get this down for record just so everybody can have it.
Yeah. So the policy is this. If a kid says he wants to take a visit to another school, they no longer consider that player committed. He still has a scholarship offer. They just don't consider him a commit, and they're going to recruit for that position. Now, before we get into the rest of the policy, with Peppers, Michigan hasn't been recruiting other cornerbacks for a while. Are they going to offer other kids to show them that they're serious? We'll see if he does take that visit. But once they open things up themselves, once the player opens up and the coaches open up and say, we're going to recruit for that position, that player is still on the board for them, and they might even consider him a strong lean, and they probably should in most cases. It's not the situation that people really like to bring to mind here is the David Dawson situation with last year's class, because the coaching staff pulled David Dawson's offer when he took an official visit, or when he announced that he was going to take an official visit to Florida without telling them. Then he took the official visit. They not only said he's no longer a commitment, they said, you don't have an offer anymore. And that was kind of a different situation because there was a cloak and dagger.
He wasn't upfront about it.
Yeah, there was a cloak and dagger format to the way he went about things, but that's not what the coaches are doing for the most part. And in the previous class, Pharaoh Brown, who's a freshman tight end at Oregon now, was a Michigan commit. He was planning on playing defensive end tight end at Michigan. Took a secret visit to Oregon. He, under the cover of night, went out to Autzen Stadium and saw Oregon play. And even then, they said, "You're not a commit, but we're still recruiting you." Now, I think they refined it a little bit with Dawson and said, if guys aren't going to be upfront about it, we might consider pulling the offer. But at that point, they are just saying, we no longer have the responsibility to you to reserve that space in the class. Now, with Jabril Peppers, if he says, I took this visit and I'm pretty sure now that I'm firm with Michigan, they aren't going to say, nope. Yeah. Forget about it. It's just a matter of it's pretty much a matter of semantics at a certain point. It's their way of discouraging kids from taking visits, and it's the only power they have in this process, especially with a kid as highly rated as Peppers. He has hundreds of offers practically, and he's the #2 player in the nation. They aren't going to pull his scholarship, but they are going to consider him uncommitted. However, I think they're going to consider him the top uncommitted prospect on the board at that point too.
Yeah, and I mean, from the kid's perspective, if I was in his position, I would want a free vacation out to wherever, wherever would have me too.
And it's a big deal because I think that's why they do it this way. Is they want kids to make sure they're ready to shut down the process before they commit, and that's why this policy, however you want to interpret it, exists. Is so that kids, it's less that so that they can say, they can punish commits, but so that they can ensure that kids don't commit before they're ready.
Yeah, when you see kids from other schools say, I'm committed to so-and-so, but I still really like, I have the top 5 of the, well, then are you really committed?
Yeah, the top 5 when you're committed probably indicates that you're not so committed after all.
Yeah.
And in fact, this totally off topic, although, well, not off topic, but off the topic of Michigan, is I remember a kid last year, I don't even remember which kid it was committed to a school. He said, I'm 100% committed, firmly committed to this school. But that school wasn't his leader in his top 5. It's like, how can you say that you're committed if they don't even lead for your services?
Yeah. So, I mean, it's a crazy world. But
especially in the age of social media and all that. If Twitter didn't exist, Jabril Peppers would sign on signing day in February, and Michigan fans would be none the wiser. Obviously, we're bringing the information for better or for worse on TheWolverine.com, but it's just the new age we live in.
Yeah. Moving on to Saturday, this was one of 2 really kind of marquee recruiting weekends, Notre Dame being the other one. Who are some of these big names that are going to be coming in?
What I think is most interesting is that almost every Michigan commit is going to be able to make it, and even though they've pretty much all wanted to in the past, it's never been a situation where they've been able to. Peppers and his teammate Juwan Bushell-Beatty are 2 of the only, in fact, I believe the only 2 2014 commits off the top of my head that won't be able to make it because they're playing for a state championship the following week, and they have a 2-a-day on Saturday. In the middle of the season, well, I guess at the end of the season, a couple of 2015 commits have games on Saturday as well. They won't be able to make it, but the rest of the 2014, 2015, and of course now 2016 commits will be in the house. They'll be able to convince some of these visitors to take a closer look at Michigan, and some of the kids that are going to be at Michigan Stadium on Saturday are just so impressive. We have a couple of linebackers from Ohio. Justin Hilliard from Cleveland Benedictine is an athlete, but he plays a lot of linebacker. He could be a BCS caliber running back too. I think he's a potential 5-star athlete.
Kind of a Miles Jack situation.
Yeah, maybe if the school that picks him up in the end says, "Hey, look what that kid did. We'll give you a shot on both sides of the ball." We'll see another Miles Jack situation in a couple of years. The other Ohio linebacker that I really like, and the Michigan coaches seem to really like him too, is Justin Hilliard out of Cincinnati St. Xavier. Obviously, that's been a power program in Southwest Ohio for a lot of years. He's already 6'2", 225, and he just looks the part of a Big Ten linebacker, and that's what Michigan really likes about him. I believe it's going to be his 4th or 5th visit up to Ann Arbor in the last few months, so he's been there a lot. Building that relationship. Now, that doesn't mean Michigan's going to land him this weekend. If they did, it would be great for the Wolverines, but just another player that is really showing the caliber of recruit this staff can bring in. A couple of in-state kids kids. I think the most important one is 2015 Saginaw Heritage wide receiver / athlete Brian Cole. He's wide open in the recruiting process, but I think Michigan has a chance to make a real move with this kid who could be the top player in Michigan for the 2015 class. 6'2", 200 pounds. He's just oozing with athletic ability. Just needs to develop as a football player, as a wide receiver. He's been a two-way player. He needs to kind of make up his mind about which side he wants to become a Division I recruit playing, and I think wide receiver is probably his higher upside, and that's what Michigan's coaches have told him that they like him at a little bit more. Another kid, a couple of young kids actually, is a 2017
freshman in high school.
Maybe Michigan will get a freshman to commit. But 2017 linebacker Joshua Ross, whose older brother James is obviously a sophomore for Michigan, and another kid from the same class, Corey Malone Hatcher. He's a defensive end out of the southwest corner of Michigan in St. Joseph, and he's already visited. He visited just a couple weeks ago for the Nebraska game, had a good visit. I think he has the chance to be a really top player in the state of Michigan in the 2017 class as well. And the 2016 class, one kid that I find really intriguing is a kid out of Trotwood, Madison, which obviously brought Roy Roundtree, Michael Shaw, and Brandon Moore in the 2008 class, and in the class that just signed in the 2013 class, Mike McRae and Rian Dawson came out of that school. This is a quarterback, Messiah DeWeaver. It's a great name. He's also a very, very good quarterback. He's a bit of a dual threat guy, but he's more of a pass-first dual threat guy, and he's visited Michigan several times as well, and I really like what he brings to the table. Obviously, Michigan has only offered one 2015 quarterback. It's going to be a while before they offer 2016 kids, but he's one that they definitely have their eye on in that class too.
All right, thanks for the great information. We'll be back from the Arena Sports Bar here with the TheWolverine.com Tailgate.
Welcome back to the TheWolverine.com Tailgate Show here at the Arena Sports Bar on 4th and Washington. Great food, great people, good times. So we're back. I got Ron Simpkins here, and of course I'm Phil Brabbs. So we want to talk a little bit about Ohio State Week. It's the biggest game on the schedule, although the coaching staff was great at making sure we didn't think about it too far in advance.
That's true.
You know, this team has had some tough losses over the last few weeks. You mentioned that you had a team that was, what, 8-4 was the worst record?
8-4. Yeah.
We might have had an 8-5. I don't know. So take us through for you, Ron. It's Ohio State Week. You finally finished, game 9 or 10. You're going into Ohio State Week. What's the difference between Ohio State Week and any other week?
I was telling Mike earlier, the Ohio State Week is kind of different than all the other weeks because after the last game before the Ohio State game, Bo used to start building you up to a frenzy. Right after you watch the film of the last game, and all of a sudden you start getting into it a little more, you add a little more intensity, you start getting the clippings on the wall, the highlights start coming out, things are being said, poster board stuff is going up, guys are getting, you believe you said that about me? Those kind of, then sometimes there are things where I think were even made up, just so guys would get emotionally, to a frenzy almost. But the biggest thing to me about the Ohio State game is that the focus that you had. Guys would get together after we've been watching film all week or at practice, and you get together in little groups, and you would sit down and take some film home, and guys would come over, and you wouldn't even talk. You just, click the film, and somebody say running back or something like that. That didn't happen in other games. But the Ohio State game, that week, guys are a little extra.
So I was there when Lloyd Carr was there. I didn't get the chance to play under Bo. How was Bo different Ohio week versus other weeks?
Totally different.
Was he?
The intensity level was like, oh my God. But
really?
the thing was, I think he had a short fuse.
Okay.
So the mistake, you didn't tolerate mistakes a lot, but that week he had a shorter fuse. But the thing that he etched in your mind was, you don't want to be that guy that causes us not to be successful. And just about preparation. It wasn't about you can't make a mistake. Because his thing was, just let make less mistakes than the other team did. But the biggest thing is have more points than them at the end of the game.
Yep, absolutely.
It wasn't about point margins or winning by so many points against Ohio State. It's like Michigan State was like, just win the game.
That's great. Yep. I mean, for me, I was there for 5 years. We were 3-2. 2002 was their national championship year. We went down to Columbus and they took the game from us. It was 14-9. We had 3 field goals. They had 2 touchdowns. And then 2003 was the 100th game, and we were able to get out there with a big victory. I mean, for this 8-4 team, typically there's a lot riding on the Michigan-Ohio State game.
Right.
Ohio State's going to the Big Ten championship game. State's got it locked in on our side.
Right.
I mean, how do you think that affects the mood? I mean, do you think it lessens the game or no?
No, I'll be honest with you, it's still Michigan, Ohio State. And on the minds of the Michigan players and the Ohio State players, I think the idea is that still the rivalry is there. Even if the records don't indicate it, I think the fact that you want to beat them, because when we talked about it earlier, when your career is over with, and you look back on it like we're doing right now, saying, you know, well, how many times did you beat Ohio State? How many times did they beat you? Those are some of the things. And then the other thing is sending the seniors out with a victory.
You hit it.
When all else fails at Michigan, you want to send the seniors out with a victory.
You hit it. I mean, you know, this is going to be senior day. You know, the players going to be out there, maybe handing roses to their mom.
Right.
And I remember that was 03. It was Ohio State. And, I mean, there is still a lot on the game in terms of Ohio State could win a national championship. We don't want them to win a national championship. We want to be their first loss in 2 years. So I think there's a lot for us to play for, and there's a lot for them to play for, regardless of whether a Big Ten championship is, you know, at play for either team. Now, looking into the game, we've had some rough games the last few weeks. We've had a hard time getting things going on offense. You know, our defense let up a lot of rushing yards against Iowa. What do you think we need to do in the first quarter? So when that first quarter's over, what do you need to see to say, you know what, I think we got a good chance to win this ball, or at least be competitive come fourth quarter?
Yeah, I honestly feel that our defense is going to play well. Yeah. The thing to me is, how will our offense respond in relationship to playing against their defense? Will we have the ability to maintain some drives? Because, you know, over the last couple of weeks, we've been trying to hit the big play, going deep all the time. I think the key to our offense is trying to sustain drive. We talked about it earlier, too. Throwing some passes earlier in the series as opposed to always run first on first down. Yeah. But the thing is, whatever we do, we have to be successful. We got to have some success doing it. Because I think that'll dictate what we're able to do later on in the game, too. Because if it's not working early, late in the game, I don't think we had the confidence to do the things that we tried earlier in the game. So if we had some success early, now I think we'll be a little more daring. I think the play calling will change somewhat, because you can't maximum protect the whole game. You just can't, you know, because you got to get some other guys into the pattern. We got to throw the ball to the tight end sometime. We got to. And the other part of our game that we haven't tried and haven't done lately too is the dump pass to the running back, getting them the ball out in the flat or something like that. I mean, those simple things like that can change the whole complexion of the game.
Yeah, they hit Fitz out of the backfield, and he ran for 15, 18 yards or whatever it was. And when I was there, we threw the ball to Chris Perry, to A-Train. I mean, that was a
staple of our offense.
That was a staple of our offense. We had tight ends. We had good running game. We could throw the ball out of the backfield to a running back. But I mean, I look back to the state game, and I feel like we said in the state game, we got to take the game to them.
Right.
I think it's another situation where we can't sit back and see what they do. We got to take the game to them. And I think it starts out, I think our defense will play solid. I think they'll be ready. I think they've been playing pretty tough. But can the offense really
match the intensity and come out and make plays and give us a chance to feel like we're in the game? Yep. It's even about talent. It's about confidence right now. Our offensive line feel like they can actually get the job done and sustain the drive to give us an opportunity to be successful during the course of the game. That's what it comes down to.
Yeah. Well, it's going to be an exciting game. I'm excited. I'm sure you're darn excited. I mean, it's Michigan Ohio State week, so we'll take a little break here and we'll be back at the arena for the what's the show again? Wolverine Tailgate Show.
Welcome back to the Arena Sports Bar and Grill on Washington 4th in downtown Ann Arbor. I am Michael Spath here with Phil Brabbs, who was with you just 2 seconds ago and kind of jumped a little bit here in programming, and Ron Simpkins. And guys, we're just going to look at the game this weekend. What you think Michigan needs to do to win, or what do you think the chances of Michigan winning this game? I know if Doug Skeen was here, he would predict Michigan 42-7 right now. I think we're all a little bit more realistic about this one. But if Michigan wins, it wins how, Ron?
It wins because we have fewer turnovers on offense and our defense steps up and makes them turn the ball over. That's the only real way I see us having a chance to win.
Yeah, I think there's a big part of that because, you know, Michigan has not been a bad turnover team the last couple of weeks. Certainly the way the game ended against Iowa with the one fumble, but they've been getting the ball back. And I know that here we're talking about when's the last time someone had a +3 turnover margin and lost the game.
It's unusual.
But if you look at this Ohio State, the only way they're going to stop this Ohio State offense from scoring 40 points is if they get 3, 4, 5 turnovers to take some of those possessions away.
Right. And our offense has to take advantage. And what we didn't do against Iowa. You know, you can't get field goals, especially against a team like Ohio State. We got to score touchdowns too.
Yeah, I think the other thing, too, is you look at the 3 and outs this game. 8 3 and outs against Iowa out of 13 possessions. How demoralizing is that for a team, for the entire team, not just for the offense, but the defense, special teams, when it's just, you come off the field and boom, you're right back on the field.
I mean, where's that the team? I mean, the offense has to sustain drives for us to have any chance. I mean, we can't. Ohio State's too good of a football team. They're going to be taking care of the football, and they're going to avoid the big play, which means we're going to have to get first downs. We're going to have to convert on third downs if we want a chance to win on Saturday.
Well, the interesting thing is someone said, like, is Michigan have a better chance to win this game 42-35 or 21-17? I go, oh, geez, I don't know, because I don't think they can score 35 points the way the offense is playing.
21-14.
21-14, but could they keep Ohio State down that much?
Again, Ohio State has to play bad. I'll be honest with you, they have to play bad in order for us to have a chance to be in this game. Just based on the way their offense has been producing, they can't produce at a high level on offense, and because I don't think we can keep up with them. Our defense has to stop them, sustain and cause some turnovers, and get field position for our offense, because I don't see 90-play drives against their defense.
Yeah, I mean, I hate to say it, but it's one of those ones where Michigan has to play the best game of their season.
Right.
And Ohio State has to play
down.
Probably, I don't know if it has to be their worst, but they have to play their second or third worst. And does that happen in this rivalry? Isn't that usually the best game that you play of the season?
I mean, there's a lot of emotions, and emotions can help you propel you forward, or, you could try to be that quarterback, you could try to make too good of a play, and so it can be to your benefit or it can be to your detriment. I mean, I think I go back to like Ohio State Northwestern. I know it was a number of games ago. Northwestern hung in there, and they were up by 10 in the third quarter. I don't think Ohio State has to play their second or third worst game for us to win. I just think we have to play a great game. I think we have to have some big plays on offense, and we have to play exceptional on defense. We have to create turnovers, and we have to then capitalize on the turnovers. And we got to score points. We have to score 21, 28 points if we want to win this game. Otherwise,
early, not late.
And we talked about that earlier. We have to take the game to them,
yes.
And that isn't just launching the ball, hoping that Gallen makes a big catch, but that's hitting the tight end, throwing short passes, and getting first down and moving. Kind of like what happened against us in Iowa, even the State game. It was field position, and it's like, you know what? We might not score this drive, and that's okay, but we're going to push the ball at the 35, 40-yard line. We're going to get a punt. They're going to be inside the 10. Right. And you know what? We stop in third down. We might get good field position and be able to move it in, kick a field goal. Maybe if we hit a couple first downs and get a big play, we can score a touchdown. But
the game that I think of is 2011 against Nebraska. That was a pretty good Nebraska team that came into the Big House. They were all talking all about the offense, and Michigan beat them by, I believe it was 3 touchdowns. I don't remember the exact score, but that was the best game that the offense played all year. And it was the best game the defense played all year, too. And it was coming off of an Illinois game where they played really well, too, on the road. I think they held them like 220 yards. And I think if the defense has one of those kind of games, but we say that, but the offense has to help them. It has to help them. They can't have the 3 and outs. They can't have the short field position. If the offense has even an average game and doesn't do what they've been doing the last couple of weeks, but maybe they don't have to score 28 points, but if they can just sustain some of those drives and not put the defense where they're on the field for 40 out of the 60 minutes, and give this defense a chance, could they win this game 28-24? I think they could. But that's just, it's just such a tall order from what we've seen the last couple of weeks.
It's about controlling the clock, managing field position, and giving us the opportunity to hopefully be in the game in the fourth quarter. That's what we want to be. We don't want to be out of the game in the fourth quarter, because that really just, that calls for a bad afternoon completely. People down, leaving the stadium, that kind of thing. If we can make it competitive, I talked about it before. We want a competitive game from the first quarter to the fourth quarter, which gives us a chance to be in it.
Gosh, I would think if it's a non-competitive game in the fourth quarter, you've got a lot of Michigan fans leaving. You've got all those Ohio State fans that are going to come down closer and closer.
It's going to be ugly.
Oh boy,
ugly.
I don't think anybody in our worst nightmare wants to see what could happen if that did happen. So, all right, guys, prediction time. Ryan, you've got to win them. Are you going to fill in for Doug here and predict a big blowout for Michigan?
No, not a blowout. 21-14. 21-14.
Okay, Phil?
So 3 field goals, that's 9, maybe 2 touchdowns, that's 23 to, we got to stop them to field goals, 23-20.
23-20 Michigan.
Yeah.
Okay.
I can't take
Well, and
Ohio
no,
State.
We
It's
can't
like
do
that's like
that.
there's some rule against that.
You
Right.
said after they lost to Michigan State, because we asked you, like, was that one of your 3 losses that you had?
I was just about to
Well, now
ask.
they've lost 3 games, so you were pretty much good to go if ever. You can say they're going to win
Lost
whenever.
3 games or 4 games? 4
I thought you said they were going to lose 3 games.
I
No,
think
no, Phil
yeah,
said 2. He said 2.
I said
He said 2.
I said
He said
10-2.
Oh, so then you're like well covered.
Yeah, I'm well covered.
Yeah. Well, I'm always the pessimist of the group, and I
You have always Ohio State by 21.
have them losing 35-10. So
25 points.
yeah, 25 points, not anything big, but I'm
At home.
happy. I tell you what, if I'm wrong, we will be back here next week, and you guys can watch me eat crow or chicken.
That sounds like a good deal to me.
Done.
All right.
Done.
From the Arena Sports Bar, this is the Wolverine.com Tailgate Show. Thanks very much for joining us.